For centuries, soldiers have relied on state-of-the-art weaponry to defend themselves in battle, expanding across several disciplines in the Second World War. Time-tested systems, such as artillery and bayonets, were supplemented with the new technology of war: automatic rifles, flamethrowers, machine guns, all culminated in the vast power of the United States military. None shined brighter than that of the soldier and his rifle, of which World War II saw several variations. To begin, we must trace back to the turn of the century, with the Spanish-American War of 1898. The Springfield 03, sometimes referred to as simply the 03, was adopted after the Krag-Jorgensen rifle of the Spanish-American War proved problematic. It wasn't until the creation of the semi-automatic M1 rifle in 1936 that the Springfield would be replaced as the standard United States military service rifle, including the years of the First World War, along with the M1917 Enfield rifle. Even though its official title as the service rifle of the United States military ceased past 1936, low supply of the M1 rifle meant most American troops were still equipped with the Springfield in the early years of World War II, specifically during the North Africa and Sicily campaigns, along with other campaign theaters, including Italy. Some troops preferred the reliability and accuracy of the 03 as compared to the firepower of other automatic and semi-automatic weapons. The 03 was finally declared limited standard, remaining in an as-needed use, but would not continue to be manufactured after the end of the war. As with most weapons, the 03 had its share of variants. Due to the manufacturing needs and ramp-up of the war, the Remington Arms Company accepted a contract to produce M1903 rifles under the title of Remington M1903 Rifle, rather than Springfield M1903 Rifle. Functionally, they were identical to the Springfield variant. However, a modified Remington was developed after production quotas from demand proved hard to meet. Changes involving component substitution and non-essential part elimination culminated in the U.S. Rifle Caliber 30 M1903 Modified designation. With eyes on faster production, another variant referred to as the U.S. Rifle Caliber 30 model of M1903A3 rifle was developed by the engineers at Remington to replace the M1905 rear sight and corresponding base, with a metal adjustable rear sight attached to the receiver. This proved a better sight in battle than the original pattern, with both Remington and Smith Corona manufacturing these models. These 03A3s were commonly used in Europe by the military police, with troops in Italy and the China-Burma-India theater utilizing them as far into the war as 1945. Yet another issue the U.S. Army faced during the war was a shortage of suitable sniper rifles, while waiting for the development of an M1 Garand specific sniper rifle. Remington designed a variant of the 03A3 referred to as the M1903A4 sniper's rifle. Similar in construction to the A3, the A4 did not fit front or rear sights. A Weaver 330C telescope and Redfield Jr. scope mount was utilized, attached to the receiver ring and existing rear sight base. The design made it simple to transition the weapon to a normal service rifle configuration if need be. Despite its shortcomings as a battle-performing sniper rifle, it was the only American sniper rifle that was mass-produced and issued during the war, seeing action in nearly every theater. The shortage of the M1 rifles during the Second World War didn't just open up the door for the manufacturing of the Springfield. Another service rifle, referred to as the Enfield, was a slightly modified version of the British rifle design, the Pattern 14, during the First World War and developed by Winchester, Remington, and Eddystone. When the United States entered the war in 1917, the manufacturing armories could not keep up with the demand for these rifles, resulting in a modified Pattern 14 rifle chambered for the standard American M1906 cartridge, adopted as the model of 1917 and produced for American troops into early 1919. Compared to the 03, the Enfield was a tad bit longer and bulkier, but proved very comparable. After the end of the war, it was decided to continue with the Springfield as the common service rifle for each military branch, retiring the M1917 rifles of the First World War. They were declared limited standard in 1939, but the shortage of rifles required pulling from the reserve stockpile of Enfields in the early years of World War II. Frontline use of these rifles was limited, but U.S. Army troops early in the war, along with a majority of field artillerymen during the North Africa campaign, utilized these rifles. Gradually, they were withdrawn as the production for M1s and 03s ramped up, being declared obsolete in October of 1945. The time finally comes for the classic M1 Garand, the most notable American service rifle of the Second World War. After multiple stages of experimentation and development, the M1 was adopted on January 9, 1936, designed for mass production and ease of field stripping for cleaning. Between 1936 and 1940, design changes were made to the engineering of the M1 rifle to increase its reliability as a combat weapon. Over 4 million of these rifles would eventually be produced by both Springfield and Winchester throughout the war, with the 03 filling the void until sufficient production of the M1 rifle was available. Soldiers were slow to catch on, with a lot of apprehension regarding the use of semi-automatic rifles in combat scenarios. This, along with the growing pains of a newly developed rifle, resulted in early negative opinions of the rifle. However, these would soon be overridden by the growing popularity of its use in combat, and most soldiers were equipped with Garands in increasing numbers after the development shortages were overcome in 1943. The U.S. also worked on development for M1 Sniper Rifle variants, the first of which being the M1C. This variant was developed by Griffin and Hoe, utilizing a Lyman Alaskan telescope. This was standardized in June of 1944, with just under 8,000 being manufactured throughout the war. The war in Europe had ended before the weapon could be utilized, however limited quantities were tested in the Pacific Theater. Along with the M1C, the Ordnance Department asked John Garand, developer of the M1 Garand, to engineer an alternative to the M1C, given the designation M1E8 and adopted as the M1D. The mounting block was permanently attached to the M1 in this version, unlike the M1C. Another semi-automatic rifle produced during the Second World War was the model of 1941 Johnson rifle, with very limited procurement and service use. Invented by Melvin Johnson, who had been charged by the Marine Corps with evaluating both the Garand rifle and its competitor, the Peterson. In response, he decided neither were designed for efficient mass production and began work on designing his own, culminating in a U.S. Army organized test between the Johnson and the Garand rifle. After a lengthy period of engineering updates and soliciting overseas customers of the rifle, Johnson was afforded the opportunity to fit units such as the Para-Marines and members of the Office of Strategic Services with the Johnson rifle, due to the issues with supply from the N1. Around 30,000 of these M1941 Johnson rifles were manufactured during the war, with only a couple thousand utilized by the United States government. The American .30 cal carbine was developed after the successful employment of blitzkrieg tactics by the Germans in the early years of World War II. This strategy of fast-paced moving columns of soldiers rather than a stagnant line required a look into the concept of lighter rifles that had previously been explored after the First World War. Troops such as line officers, signal troops, and other rear echelon troops who may not need the burden of a full-service rifle could benefit from a lighter rifle above that of a pistol. After an extensive thread of tests and experiments, a Winchester design was chosen by the Ordnance Department as the official M1 Carbine, adopted as carbine caliber .30 M1, sometimes referred to as the Baby Garand. By the end of the war, over 6 million of these carbines would be manufactured, 2 million more than the production of the M1s. The sheer number of rear echelon troops would outweigh the frontline soldiers utilizing the Garand. Although its initial intention of replacing both the pistol and submachine gun of the United States Army did not come to fruition, it was still a popular weapon among soldiers. A variant of the M1 Carbine fell under the designation of M1A1 and was adopted for airborne troops in need of a folding metal buttstock. The M2 Carbine variant was adopted in 1945, a selective fire version of the M1 Carbine. Lastly, the T3 Carbine was semi-automatic with a modified receiver that could mount a night vision scope. A need for a rifle that could fire at an automatic pace, but light enough that one man could carry and operate it, unlike the unwieldy machine guns, was determined during the war. The Browning automatic rifle did just that, invented by John Browning at the start of the First World War. This version was given the designation of Browning Machine Rifle, model of 1918. Synonymous with the term bar. This gun was capable of automatic firing at a rate of 500 rounds per minute, intended to keep enemies' heads within trenches while the infantry assaulted over. After its success in World War I, it was standardized as the automatic rifle for the United States Army, and a modified version was adopted as Model 1922. In 1937, the original M1918 was modified and adopted as M1918A1 with a bipod and folding butt plate. The M1918A2 was similar to the A1, including features to aid in cooling and a rear sight replacement. This version could only fire fully automatic, unlike the previous two versions. Small changes would continue to be made to increase production pace to meet the war demands, seeing service through the entirety of the war and being retained until the mid-1950s. We've heard of the model of 1941 Johnson rifle. However, Johnson also engineered a light machine gun. Although the title may be deceiving, it was officially classified as an automatic rifle due to the fact it did not utilize a belt feed. It weighed much less than the bar, and unlike the bar, the barrel could be easily removed. The Army's 1st Special Service Force were issued the M1941 Johnson LMG, with the weapon being generally well-liked by its users. It would remain in the shadow of the bar throughout the war. Each rifle was unique in its own way, with preferences varying across the entire service. The importance of the service rifle in a military is time-tested, reaching as far as present day with the U.S. Army's new fielded M7. Although the M1 Garand is the most notable of the rifles, each of them played a role in ultimately defending the idea of freedom across the world, saving the lives of our soldiers in World War II who met with and destroyed the enemy, with their rifle at their side.